This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming back the beautiful and the talented Elisa Jordan. We are going to nerd out on the entertainment of our youth. Last time she was on, we talked old Hollywood films. I want to see what she liked in modern day, back in the day as well, in film and television and music. Alyssa, of course, has the LA tours where she does tours of, all the landmark, stops in LA and what have you of old Hollywood. But she's also got the All Things Maryland podcast where she talks about her favorite, star of old Hollywood, Marilyn Monroe, and one of my favorite as well. And it's going to be great to have her back on today. We were going to do this at Christmas time, but things got busy and, there's a lot of craziness going on in LA right now with those horrible fires, which I just friggin' hope they will stop soon. I am so friggin' tired of them. It's a hazard to everybody, including friends that have been on the podcast and stuff. And that's all we can do is pray for it and hope that it will end soon. It is just insane. So yeah, here is my new interview with Elisa Jordan. Hey Elisa, welcome back. How are you today?
Hi, it's good to hear you.
Yeah, oh my God. I am just so blessed and I'm so worried about all of you out there in LA.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm okay, but some of my friends have been impacted. They're saying, and I think this is true, there's no one who hasn't been affected somehow by the fires. Either it's you or someone you know, but it's definitely touched you in some way, shape, or form. But I'm okay, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it's friggin' nuts, but hopefully something good will happen soon. Some rain or something.
Well, we're supposed to, as of today, when we're recording, we're supposed to get some rain this weekend,
Oh,
which
good.
we need. But at the same time, all of those hills that have just been hit with fire are now at risk for mudslides. So
Oh,
they're trying to prepare for that.
it never ends. It never ends.
It never ends. So, how have you been?
I've been great, really good, and I'm just
Okay.
blessed beyond blessed. That's all I can say.
Well, good.
So going back in time, do you remember the first movie that impacted you as a child? I remember you telling me Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was the first old Hollywood classic that did, but
Hmm.
like, was there something more modern at the time that did?
Well, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was certainly the biggest impact, but for contemporary movies at the time, I would probably have to say the Star Wars movies
Mm-hmm.
because there was a strong female character, and when I was growing up, there weren't many strong female characters. We had Princess Leia and we had Linda Carter as Wonder Woman. So I
Yeah,
was pretty profoundly impacted by Princess Leia.
I was impacted by Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and I still love both. I still treasure those memories.
Yeah. Oh my God. Back to the Future for me was the first one that impacted me because my parents used to let me look at their yearbooks, and I always had that
Hmm.
fantasy of going back in time and seeing them in high school and finding out why they're so fucked up and why I'm so fucked up. You know.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Well, we all are in some way, shape, or form.
Of course. Yeah. Um, as far as like contemporary movies, like what
Hmm.
genres did you gravitate toward the most?
Probably comedies.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like to use movies as an escape, so I really like comedies. I like laughing. I like any good movie, but what I gravitate towards typically is something that's going to be lighthearted and fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a comedy nerd, always have been. I mean, I love Mel Brooks and Neil Simon and Woody Allen and
Hmm.
Blake Edwards movies and the old comedy teams. I mean, so much of that
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, and I grew up in the John Hughes era of
Yes.
movies. So I loved all of those, although, a lot of them didn't age well. You couldn't make them now, but at the time they were considered pretty great. But I loved all of those too.
I was born in '83. My brother was born in '73. He recorded everything off HBO, and
Uh-huh.
we had Hughes movies. We had all the raunchy teen sex comedy movies: Porky's,
Hmm.
Revenge of the Nerds, Animal House, Private School. Oh, I remember one time. I think I was rewinding or fast forwarding um, the tape that had Private School on it because I wanted to watch something else. And my mom came in, and it was at the end when they're like, mooning the principal at graduation.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, "Why are they all showing their butts?"
Yeah, I've actually never seen that movie.
Yeah, you should. I mean, as bad as it is, it's pretty funny. I had the writer on years ago.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I also grew up watching, believe it or not, the Three Stooges because I
Yes.
have an older brother,
Yeah.
and he loved the Three Stooges. I mean, it's kind of a boy thing, but because he was older, he had control of the TV.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty familiar with the Three Stooges too.
It's a Kovac family trait in my family.
Right.
My grandfather saw them in the theater when he was a kid, and then when they hit
Oh.
and then when they hit cable, my dad's generation, my grandfather got him into it, and then he passed that on down to me. And to this day, we still watch the Three Stooges whenever we're together.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it again talking about comedy that doesn't translate well to today, but at the time it was funny, and I remember my mom saying to him like, "Well, how can you watch this? They're so mean to each other." And his answer was, "Only when they deserve it." So
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
I don't get hung up on the cultural appropriations of today and stuff because all the stuff of the past will always have an audience, even if there's younger generations that don't approve of it.
Hmm.
You know,
When you have to put everything in the context of its time, I mean, things we're doing today are not going to translate well into what people are going to be doing 40 and 50 years from now. And what we're doing now is done with the best of intentions, but it's not going to be seen that way in the future. And it's the same thing over and over again. It all cycles.
well, today I'm just falling asleep seeing the things that I watch. It's just like there's no bite to it. There's no humor. There's no
Hmm.
there's nothing I can relate to.
Right.
you know, it's crazy. Yeah, I was a big Charlie Chaplin fan.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah, I like Charlie Chaplin, and I also like Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton, his contemporaries.
I've only gotten into those guys later in life because when I was a kid, their
Hmm.
stuff was not on the video store shelf and they weren't on
Mm.
cable. And I heard an interview recently with Suzanne Lloyd, who's his granddaughter who he
Hmm.
raised, and she said, yeah, her father didn't like television and he really screwed himself over not giving the rights to his movies to television at the end of his life.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, television was kind of seen as the enemy of movies for a long time, and
Yeah.
that's gone away. But I kind of get his generation wouldn't have looked on that fondly.
Oh yeah, John Wayne turned down to do Western TV series, but he didn't like
Uh
television.
huh.
He thought that it was lazy work with no effort.
Yeah, well, that was the general consensus at the time. He wasn't thinking anything that others weren't thinking. I mean, a lot of the studios at the time, the movie studios, were late getting into television because they thought it was going to be a fad. And
Yeah.
even when they realized it wasn't a fad, they thought of it as lesser. And there was a competition, a sense of competition, because the thought was, well, this is what's going to eat away at our market share. We don't want to feed the beast. And in a way, they were right. It was taking away their market share, but instead of enhancing that, um, they saw it as the enemy. I mean, with Warner Brothers, the oldest brother, Harry Warner, actually did see the future and tried to buy a couple of TV stations at different points, but because of the antitrust laws, he wasn't permitted to buy them because he saw it as another venue to show Warner Brothers movies. So he saw the future, but he was the only one and he wasn't permitted to do that. Whereas Jack Warner, his younger brother, wouldn't even allow a television set on the lot. So, and when he finally decided he had to do something about television, what he did was recycle the old movies. And instead of, showing Casablanca on television, he made a television show, Casablanca. Same thing with Cheyenne. That show actually became a hit. But he was trying to just do updated versions for television of his movies. And, other than Cheyenne, it didn't really go too far, but
Yeah.
they weren't seeing it as a compliment to movies. And now we do. But it took decades to catch up to that.
Oh yeah, and of course, I've talked about this many times. The $1 Million Movie was going on in the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast, and back then they had trouble licensing films because they thought TV was a fad. So they would show the same movie over and over again, like every
Mm-hmm.
night. And then once they realized TV was here to stay, then they could show anything. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, it made a lot of movie fans out of people, myself included, and you. I
Hmm.
mean, we saw these movies and then went looking for more.
Yeah, we had variations on the $1 Million Movie in the Bay Area on our local UHF stations. Like when I see the computer animation graphics of the ones from my generation, I see the $1 Million Movie. I could see where they got it from, and
Hmm.
we had the station KBHK 44 that I friggin' loved because they would show at 2 a.m. weeknights, especially in the summertime. They would show everything from the War of the Worlds to What's Up Doc to Big Bad Mama to the Bad News Bears Go to Japan,
Hmm.
the first National Lampoon's Vacation movie. I mean, just variety of stuff. And I love it. Now it's owned by Fox, the network, and
Mm.
they bought all these networks on local UHF stations in the Bay Area. It's sad because they're not the same anymore.
Right. Yeah, I had the Family Film Festival here in Southern California, which was on in the mornings on the weekends,
Hmm.
and that's how I was exposed to a lot of these movies, including Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. That's how I found it, Family Film Festival.
Nice. Yeah, my brother had a weird obsession with medieval sword and sorcery epics. He liked Kroll, Highlander, Labyrinth, Neverending Story, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it took me a while
Yeah.
to get into those, but eventually I did, and now I love them.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to warm up to something, which is fine as long as you get there.
Labyrinth I liked because it was Jim Henson. There was all these puppets everywhere, and
Hmm.
you're just bedazzled by like God. It takes a lot of effort and preparation and planning to create these puppets and to figure out okay what are we gonna do with them, you know. And
Hmm.
every time I watch that movie, it never fails me to think, God, how did they pull this off? You know?
And if you watch the original Muppets movie from the late 70s, it's
Yeah.
still great.
It is. I love all of them, but like those ones are special. I don't think he should have sold the company to Disney because I don't think they've really known what to do with the Muppets.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Did you have any movie crushes growing up?
Movie crushes? Like, what do you mean?
Like any actors or actresses that you had a crush on?
No, I can't think of anyone I had a crush on in the movies. My crushes were like Jim Morrison and John Taylor of Duran Duran.
Yeah. Me was like Cary Grant. My mom had a paperback book that had all these
Uh-huh.
beautiful black and white pictures of Cary Grant,
Uh-huh.
and that's where it started for me. Natalie Wood, of course. Um,
Hmm.
I almost interviewed Lana Wood recently, and something weird's going on there, but hopefully
Oh.
it'll happen. Um, every 80s movie actress that I've interviewed and become friends with, I had a crush on back in the day.
Uh,
It's
yeah, I've been more into that look as an adult,
mhm.
you know. So I like Marlon Brando, Errol Flynn, that kind of thing.
I mean, there were some rock stars that I liked too. I mean, I was into like Lita Ford. I thought she was gorgeous and
Oh
still do.
yeah.
Yeah, there was her. I mean, I was a huge Go Go's and Bengals kid, and there were certain girls in those groups that I liked,
Hmm.
and stuff. But for the most part, it was the movies for me, with
Yeah.
with actresses.
Yeah, you were you familiar with the Runaways at all
Oh yeah,
or
oh yeah, yeah. Joan Jett and Lita
yeah.
Ford and Cherie
Hmm.
Curry, who I can't stand.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I discovered the Go-Go's first because when I was growing up they were actually still around, and then I later went back and found the Runaways.
hmm Yeah, well, I think a lot of people found the Runaways later because they didn't get to have the massive success that the
Hmm.
Go-Go's and the Bengals did. They had toxic management and they all had egos that were
Hmm.
bigger than themselves too. There was a lot of
Hmm.
reasons why they didn't become successful, but they are pioneers.
They sure are, yeah.
Did you go to the drive-in a lot growing up?
Not a lot, but we did go. I remember seeing my biggest memory of the drive-in was Empire Strikes Back.
Wow. I it's funny, my brother, he got to see at least, maybe he saw all three of the original Star Wars movies in the theater, but like he did get to have the original theater experience, and he got me
Uh-huh.
into Star Wars early on. I had like a Star Wars sheet and pillow that
Uh-huh.
was kind of based on the original theatrical poster, and
Uh-huh.
I've always loved the original Star Wars trilogy. I haven't liked any of the sequels or prequels since.
Yeah, neither do I. But I love the original trilogy, and my cousin had those same bed sheets that you had.
Yeah. Yes, and I have a beautiful Star Wars poster that I never got to get signed at conventions. I got to though. There's so many people I know who are involved in that production. I gotta get their signature, and
Uh-huh.
hopefully I will and stuff. But yeah, my parents started taking me to drive-in when I was two, and
Oh.
they took me to see Weird Science and Rambo 2. It was a late summer double bill in 1985.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I remember it a little bit. I remember all the movies I saw at the drive-in the first couple of years before they stopped taking me for a while, because
Hmm.
I was always falling asleep or knocking on windshields, as a kid. And so
Yeah.
like they took me to see, oh my God, they took me to see like Spies Like Us and The Golden Child and Heartbreak Ridge and Star Trek
Hmm.
4, Light of Day with Michael J. Fox and Joan Jett, Beverly Hills Cop 2. That may have been the last one they took me to for a few years. And then when I got to go back again when I was 6 and a half, my dad and I went to go see the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Those were the days. I don't even think they have. We used to have one. Oh gosh, there was still a drive-in in Fountain Valley for a while, but now even that's gone.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. A lot of them have become, like swap meets, or they were turned into Walmarts, or because they had so much land.
Mhm. That's not necessarily bad though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what movie characters do you relate to the most?
That's a great question. I don't know.
First time I've asked it.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me. That's a good one. You may have stumped me.
Mhm.
Because for as much as I love Princess Leia, I'm not, an outer space princess running around shooting stormtroopers.
Yeah. maybe the strong autonomy of her, maybe is
Yeah,
something you can relate to.
yeah. I think, maybe standing up to authority and that kind of thing.
Yeah, for me, Peter Sellers and being there, um,
Okay.
because just like him, I have a little bit of autism, and like I can say the most simple things and influence people. And I'm
Hmm.
shocked when that happens, when somebody does something after I said something, you know. Um, there's him, and there's James Spader in Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Uh-huh.
Because just like him, I get my jollies when people tell me about their sex lives. But
Oh, okay.
I have to know the person for a while first before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the two characters I can relate to the most.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So getting into television more, like what sitcoms did you watch
Mhm.
growing up?
So I loved television growing up, and I watched TV all the time. I loved the Brady Bunch. That was a big one with me.
Hmm.
Um, Bewitched. I Dream of Jeannie. I Love Lucy. I loved Gilligan's Island. All those classic sitcoms. I really loved What's Happening. I loved Good Times, Different Strokes, The Facts of Life. I loved all of those.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was a big Family Ties kid and Facts of Life and
Hmm.
Give Me a Break, Mr. Belvedere, Who's the Boss, Full House, Family Matters, Seinfeld, Wonder
Uh-huh.
Years. Yeah,
Yeah, I
all of
watched
them.
all those.
I also loved my parents' generation of sitcoms. I watched The
Mhm.
Munsters, The Addams Family, Get Smart, Green Acres, Leave It to Beaver, I Dream of Jeannie. And in fact, I Dream of Jeannie, they had to shoot the pilot twice because her belly button showed in the pilot, and that was
Mhm.
controversial back then on TV.
Yeah, which is so crazy to think of now. But I loved all those shows too. I was a TV kid for sure.
Yeah, and then 2 years later, Barbara Luna and Nichelle Nichols they broke that no belly button rule on Star Trek,
Mhm.
and I've talked to Barbara Luna about it and just how controversial it was at the time, and then Gene Roddenberry he did a pilot called Genesis 2 where Mary Hartley was a space woman with two belly buttons.
Oh, I remember hearing about that.
It's on YouTube actually. Yeah.
Hmm.
That pilot. Yeah. And I think Mary Hartley said in an interview that her husband was turned on by that or something.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and Star Trek was greenlit by Lucille Ball.
Yes, Desilu Productions.
Yep.
I've talked to quite a few people who worked at Desilu Productions on whatever show was being made at the time. And it's funny, a lot of them never even saw Lucy or Desi on the lot.
Yeah, well, Lucy eventually bought Desi out, so he wouldn't have been there very much. But um, she was there. I've seen the outside of her office.
Yeah. And
It's kind
like,
of cool that it's still there.
yeah, like I'm trying to remember. I think it was, oh yeah, I interviewed Larry Matthews from the Dick Van Dyke Show, and
Mhm.
I asked him, who did you see on the lot there when you were at Desilu and stuff? I was like, did you see Robert Stack when he was doing the Untouchables? He was like, no, you would think I would, but no, I never saw Robert Stack around. I was like, wow, that's strange.
Yeah. Well, imagine. I mean, I work on a studio lot, and I don't see very many celebrities because they're working.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what studio are you at?
Warner Brothers.
Oh, you're at Warner Bros. Did they go through like some major renovations recently?
Not on the main lot. You might be thinking of the former Warner Brothers Ranch,
Hmm.
but they sold that, and the new owners bulldozed the back lots.
Yeah, that's so sad. I went to go see a live taping of Conan O'Brien back in 2016. My fr-
Hmm.
we were given special treatment because I walk with a cane, and
Uh-huh.
my friend had to go to the bathroom, so they gave us a nice little studio tour on the way to the bathroom, and the back lot reminded me so much of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I was like,
Oh
God,
yeah, that's where it filmed.
yeah, I was like, it's been 30 years. It still looks the same. It has never changed. It was so
Mhm.
cool. And then we go to the bathroom in the main building and we see these Looney Tunes posters and everything. And I'm like, oh my God,
Mhm.
this is like heaven to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
God.
it's fun walking around and you can feel the history around you.
Yeah, it was so cool. And it was a really fun taping too. I mean, I've heard stories about sitcoms like, taking forever and stuff, like 8 hours, and they have
Mhm.
to keep doing everything over and over again. Didn't have that experience with Conan. Didn't have that.
Yeah, the talk shows seem to go faster because they don't do retakes. They just do the show.
Right.
They don't have a script to memorize. They just do the interview and then they're finished.
Yeah. It's funny because the whole arc of television in such a short period of time is really interesting. In the 50s, you had all these squeaky clean, family friendly sitcoms like Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and
Hmm.
Make Room for Daddy. And then by the 60s, you get these high concept fantasy shows like the ones I mentioned before.
Hmm.
And then in the 70s, you get Norman Lear, Gary Marshall, James L. Brooks really changing the landscape of sitcoms with ensemble shows and social commentary about social issues that were going on at the time. And sitcoms really changed by that point. And then,
Hmm.
there were some attempts to do stuff from the 60s, but by that point, it just looked really cheesy. Like, I don't think people really fully grasped Mork and Mindy, except for the fact that Robin Williams was a genius, and I think that was the only reason that show was
Hmm.
successful. Otherwise, it looked really cheesy compared to all the Lear stuff that was on at the time.
Right. Yeah, TV tends to reflect the era it's on, and then the 1950s because of McCarthyism and HUAC. You're not going to color outside the lines very much. There's a real emphasis on conformity because no one
Hmm.
wanted to be blacklisted. And then in the 60s, we start getting into the Vietnam War and we're in the Cold War. Um, so you start getting a lot of these fantasy shows or, shows where you can lose yourself, like The Munsters or I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, because people wanted an escape from what was going on in the world. And then by the 70s, everyone was jaded, so you start to get realism. So it just kind of goes like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And then by the 90s, you had the ensemble group of Friends sitcoms like Friends.
Hmm.
And then there was an imitator. What was it called? Two guys, two girls, and a pizza. That was on ABC. That was a Friends ripoff. That was funny.
Hmm.
And of course, Seinfeld had that thing
Hmm.
too. It was, yeah. I mean, the sitcoms were always evolving. And then, of course, by the late 2000s, Modern Family was like, what was it? Single camera sitcom, and
Yeah.
it's been single camera ever since. And it's just like even though some people don't like the studio laughter, I like it. It adds magic to it, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, they all have their place, but single camera is definitely the trend right now. And for those who don't know what single camera means, it
Hmm.
means there's no audience.
Right. Did you ever watch Batman?
The show from the 60s?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did all the time. It was on in reruns when I was growing up, but yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, I was a huge Batman fan. They made a theatrical movie when the show first started, and my dad went to
Hmm.
go see it when he was 9 years old. And my aunt, who was 20, she took all my uncles. She was the only girl in the family, and she was the oldest one. She took all my uncles to see it. And
Hmm.
there's always been this family bond over Batman. And I got to interview Burt Ward in 2020, and it was funny because I call him on a Wednesday to do the interview. He screams at the top of his lungs, not at me, but at his publicist, because apparently he had done this before. He had booked him for a Wednesday, and he can't do interviews on Wednesday, he said, and he told me why, which I won't repeat because it was private and it was actually quite sad. But I'm trying so hard not to laugh because at 75, he still sounds like he did when he was 20. And I'm expecting him to say, I'm not going to be a pawn in your game, Joker.
Well, hopefully you were able to reschedule, right?
Yeah, we did it the next day.
Oh,
Um,
good.
I had to cut it short because I had another interview right after him. The other interview kept rescheduling as well and stuff. But with what I got, it was fine. I mean, it wasn't the best interview either of us have ever done, but at least I could say I interviewed Burt Ward.
Yeah. Well, I think he rescues dogs now. I don't know if he's still rescuing
Yes.
dogs, but he was.
Yes, and he's got organic dog food or something like that, which we talked
Mhm.
about. Yeah. I was also a huge Monkees fan.
Oh, I loved the Monkees. I'm still a Monkees fan.
Yes. Oh my God, I had a huge crush on Davy Jones, and I got to see them.
Everyone did.
Yes, I got to see them live in '97. They were at Candlestick Park before a Giants game, doing a like a 10 song show, and
Mhm.
they drove off the field in a Cadillac with the top down. It was so awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. What's his name? Michael Nesmith was not there. It was only the three of them, but it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike Nesmith a lot of times didn't show up. Like I saw the Monkees perform a couple of times and Mike Nesmith wasn't with them.
Yeah, and also too, his mother invented whiteout. Michael Nesmith.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was independently wealthy because of that.
he was a good businessman. I mean, he created the first long form music video tape in the early '80s with elephant parts, which won a
Mhm.
Grammy, and it spun off into a short lived NBC series.
Yeah. And I like Mike Nesmith.
Hmm.
Well, I like them all. They're all interesting people for their own. They all have their own gifts, but Mickey Dolenz turned up in this really great documentary called The Wrecking Crew
Yes.
about the session musicians that were really popular in the 1960s. And Michael Nesmith didn't want to be interviewed for it until it was pretty much already done. So I think his interview was going to be part of the bonus features or something.
Yeah, I saw the documentary. I thought it was good. I know what's her name. I think her name was Carol Kay, the female bass player of the Wrecking Crew. I heard
Uh huh.
she was upset that they didn't give her enough credit that she was entitled to, you know. And then I tried to get her on the podcast at one point, and she was offended that I referred to her as a rock musician instead of a studio musician. I'm like, oh my God, get over it. You know, it's like she's
Yeah.
really bitter.
Well, she probably had to put up with a lot.
Well, I mean, they said. Do you remember this? They said in the documentary. I mean, she was like one of the guys already, you know. But like, I can't imagine her, you know, putting up with a lot in terms of being offended and stuff. But something must have happened that we don't know about, you know.
Yeah, that could be. There's some great footage of her with Gene Simmons from Kiss, and they're playing bass together.
Interesting, interesting, because Gene Simmons is a well-known misogynist.
Hmm. Well, she schooled him on playing the bass.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, she that's her playing bass on the Abs Family theme.
Hmm. Well, and so if you watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel,
Hmm.
there's a storyline where Mrs. Maisel goes on the road and she's touring with a band, and there's a woman in the band who's playing bass and looks exactly like Carol Kay.
Hmm.
And Carol Kay was, I don't know if she did sue, but I think she was going to sue. And she kind of had a point because it was very clearly Carol Kay, although they didn't
Hmm.
call her that.
Hmm.
Um, and she didn't like some of the things the character was saying.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was settled or not, but when I saw the character, I was like, oh, they dressed this woman up like Carol Kay. And then, sure enough, Carol Kay got wind of it and was threatening to sue.
Wow. Wow. That is crazy. I've interviewed Don Peake, who did the music for The Hills Have Eyes.
Uh huh.
And he was in the Wrecking Crew for years, and he told me some stories. Um, I'd have to go back and listen to it to hear what stood out, but like he did tell me a few stories and stuff, which I thought was cool.
Hmm.
Did you watch any of the HBO kids shows like the Babysitters Club or Encyclopedia Brown or Encyclopedia?
No, we didn't have HBO when I was growing up. My
Oh,
parents didn't want it for some reason, so I haven't seen any of those.
I feel sorry for people whenever I find out they didn't grow up with HBO because I can tell you from my point of view it was magical because
Uh huh.
this is right. We got it just before Chris Albrecht took over. We got it.
Uh huh.
It was so special because they would show music videos between movies. They did
Uh
this
huh.
for years. And by the time Chris Albrecht took over, comedy was ruling HBO because Chris Albrecht was a stand-up comedian before he decided to go into entrepreneurial stuff behind the scenes. And he'd put all his friends in stand-up comedy on HBO and do specials and stuff. It was just so magical, and the selections of movies they showed was fantastic. But then at a certain point, it started to change. It became just more focused on the TV shows like The Sopranos and Sex and the City and so forth.
Hmm.
But it was magical when I was really really little.
Yeah, I loved. I didn't have HBO until kind of late, but I did love The Sopranos and Sex and the City. I
Yes.
love The Wire. All of those great. They're now classic HBO TV shows.
Yeah. Did you watch Taxi Cab Confessions?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh God, I remember. I think it must have been the pilot episode. There's like three girls in the back of the cab, and the one in the middle starts bragging about being a squirter, and it was so hilarious. Just I like they're trying to keep a straight face, but they're just laughing hysterically and stuff.
The cab driver was trying to keep a straight face.
No, no, the girls.
Oh,
I think they were drunk.
yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I watched Tracy Takes On with Tracy Ullman. She did that one where her and Julie Kavner are lesbian golfers, and
Uh-huh.
they want to tell the world that they're lesbians, but they can't yet. But then they do just by a simple kiss after Tracy wins her shot at the end.
Uh-huh. I haven't seen that. I remember the Tracy Ullman show, but I haven't seen the HBO show.
The Tracy Ullman show on Fox, I didn't know about until much later because I was probably going to bed early in those early years, and that's why I
Hmm.
wasn't aware of it. But that's where The Simpsons came from. They were do like these 30-second shorts, you know.
Hmm. Yep, I watched The Simpsons for years too.
Yeah, and well, the first 10 years of The Simpsons I think is the best, and then after that, that's when fan fiction starts to come into play, and
Hmm.
it's like ever since they've been making episodes based on fan suggestions on the internet,
Hmm.
you know. God, I don't know how that show has lasted as long, especially on Fox. I'm surprised it hasn't gone into like first run syndication or Netflix or something, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know how these things work, but I mean, good for them for keeping it going.
Yeah. But yeah, I watched a lot of docu-series on HBO, especially about human sexuality. That's where a lot of my personality was formed.
Hmm.
Shock TV, Real Sex, Cat House.
Hmm.
I used to watch American Undercover. In fact, I watched one from the 80s recently, and I was shocked at what they got away with talking about in this documentary, talking about, child molesters and rapists and stuff. I was like,
Yeah,
wow. In 1986, that was bold to talk about.
yeah. I don't know if I could get through that.
I could barely get through it. In fact, I had to skip.
Yeah.
I had to skip a couple of places to be honest with you. Um, Do you remember a show called Ready or Not?
No, I don't. I've
When
never heard of it.
whenever I bring that up to people, they don't remember it in my age group. Okay, it was a Friday night show on Showtime. It was about two teenage girls. One's liberal, one's conservative. They both come from different sides of the tracks, but yet they're both facing the same problems all teenagers do, and so they're best friends. And
Uh-huh.
it was a bold half hour, single camera sitcom for teens talking about rape, AIDS, abortion, pregnancy, all that stuff that was hot topics in the 90s. And it was
Uh-huh.
it was a funny, touching kind of a show, but Disney Channel started rerunning it and they chopped up a lot of the adult content and they bleeped out the bad words and stuff, and I was just like,
Hmm.
why even show this on the Disney Channel?
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't have Showtime either, so I didn't see it.
it took away the essence of what they were talking about.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty interesting. Um, so getting into music, do you remember the first album you ever bought with your own money or given to you?
I think it was the Go-Go's.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I was an MTV kid. I had Phil Collins' No Jacket
Uh-huh.
Required with birthday money and Poison's
Uh-huh.
Look What the Cat Dragged In.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I have an older brother, so I listened to a lot of his records, but
Hmm.
the one I remember buying with my own money was the Go-Go's.
Yeah.
And then, it just kind of grew from there.
Their first album, Beauty and the Beat, is one of my favorite albums ever. It's like one of my top three desert island albums. It's just
Yeah, it's timeless.
it's just it's LA punk in a nutshell, but it's also got the pop edge, of course, because that's what they were
Hmm.
going for. But yeah, it's just an album that holds up. And Gina Shock, the drummer, has been on here twice, which is
Hmm.
fantastic. I get so emotional. She's like my favorite guest ever because she got really vulnerable near the end of our interview, and she made me cut some stuff out of it. But I was just
Oh,
like, this is beautiful. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, she was kind of a hero of mine when I was growing up because she was the first female drummer I'd ever seen, and I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, and she's also a damn good drummer too. I mean,
Hmm.
I asked her. I said, "Were you influenced by Dave Clark because?" Their drumming style is very similar. She's like, no, I thought he was cute, but like, yeah, I mean, I listened to Dave Clark 5, but it wasn't an influence or anything.
Hmm.
Yeah. I remember you telling me last time you're a big Duran Duran fan. I am, of course, as well.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, and
I
I
loved Duran Duran. Still do.
and I did some research. Warren Cucurullo does not have a vibrator. However, he did pose nude for a gay magazine back in the day.
Oh, I thought he had a vibrator.
No, I looked it up and I was like, wow. No, I couldn't find it.
Um,
It was weird.
I
But
wonder what he's doing now. Is he still playing music?
probably, probably.
Huh.
Yeah, my parents, my dad had a rock band when I was a kid, and
Hmm.
vinyl records were huge in our house. We had a big box of vinyl records from back in the day: Beatles, Stones, Beach Boys, Carole King's Tapestry, Fleetwood
Hmm.
Mac, Rod Stewart, Captain Beefheart, lots of old school stuff. And just that stinky, musky smell of vinyl is so intoxicating.
Yeah, I think it is for a lot of us.
Yeah. And like, yeah, we had all that stuff. My dad did not like hair metal, and I was a huge hair metal guy and still am.
Hmm.
He liked Guns N' Roses because they reminded him of Zeppelin and all the hard rock bands that he was into when he was a teenager.
Yeah, they were more hard rock.
Yeah, like he was into them, and I mean, there's some songs here and there he likes from certain bands like Motley Crue and stuff, but for the most part, he just wasn't into the hair metal scene.
Hmm. Yeah, it was kind of a special niche.
Yeah. Do you remember your first concert?
Um, yes, it was at Knott's Berry Farm. My dad took me to Knott's Berry Farm. He took my brother and I to Knott's Berry Farm for my birthday, and the association was playing that day. So we
Nice.
got in line and saw the
Hmm.
association. So I was, I don't know, maybe about six.
Have you ever seen Duran Duran live?
Many times, yes.
I've yet to see it. My friend Tina, who's going to be coming on here next week, she has seen them every year since like 1983 or something.
Wow, that's crazy. I missed last year, which turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise because it rained at all their shows in the LA area.
Yeah.
But I'd seen them every time they had toured since 89 or 90.
Yeah.
89.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think it was 2017. They came to the Bay Area or something. Tina went. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go, but I didn't get to. And I was just about to move too, I remember. And yeah, I have that concert movie they did, Arena, an absurd
Mm-hmm.
notion, with the mad scientist,
Yeah.
and shit. I had Russell Mulcahy on here years ago, and I asked him, I was like, what was up with that, with that concert? And he said, it's just like, they were big fans of Barbarella and they wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
something that was Barbarella oriented at the time. And so that was where that came from. There's an actress that hopefully I'm going to be interviewing soon. Her name's Deborah Wakeham. She's Canadian. She was in like the front row of that show as like an extra, and she's got this huge resume of film and TV credits in the 80s and 90s, and that's on there. And I'm definitely going to bring it up.
Well, yeah, that's a big deal. I would be, wearing sandwich boards advertising that I had been in the front row of that concert and just walk around like I was in the front row of the arena concert.
Do you have a favorite Duran Duran video?
No, I don't. I kind of have liked them all for different reasons.
Well, for me, aside from the chauffeur, which is a hot, steamy video, I
Hmm.
love I love the Rio video. It is so like nouveau, new art, very European. Just the style
Hmm.
of it with the painted bodies and like, just the camera work and everything. I told Russell Mulcahy how much I enjoyed this video, and he told me that, sharks almost came for them when they went swimming after hours.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, their videos in the early years were breakthroughs because videos were so primitive back then and they were kind of boring in retrospect.
Yeah.
But Duran Duran came out with these spectacular little, almost like mini movies, and they were cinematic and they were just gorgeous and they still hold up today.
Well, their songs were so good. It's like you don't want to waste a video on the song. You want to tell the story and be
Hmm.
artistic. Like "Lonely in Your Nightmare" is a great video.
Oh, I love that video.
Yeah, and I like how in the video album, in their Grammy Award winning video album, which I have on VHS, I love how Planet Earth goes from "Lonely in Your Nightmare" to "Careless Memories." It's just
Hmm.
I just love how it flows.
Hmm. Yeah, they have always been on the cutting edge of art and visuals, media. They've always just kind of outdone their competition.
Always, always. So yeah, so the Monkees was like, that concert at Candlestick was like, technically my first concert, but then I also saw Steppenwolf at the county fair, and John Kay was
Hmm.
the only original member. Alice Cooper was my first like big, huge show when I was 17. I had just lost
Hmm.
a football game in high school that day, and this was a great way to end it. Alice is such a showman. He does like one or two songs from every album, except for the ones
Hmm.
that he was fucked up on in the early '80s. But he covers the broad spectrum of his catalog, and he gets killed at the end. I mean, he is a showman.
Yeah, I've seen him too, and he's a lot of fun to see live. So if anyone has not seen him, I highly recommend going to see Alice Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to see him again. He's still out there and stuff. And
Hmm.
I heard he was doing some shows with Cheap Trick, and they all did Schools Out together.
Hmm.
I've
That
seen
would be fun.
Yeah, and I've seen Cheap Trick live too. The guitarist Rick Nielsen, he took the guitar off and gave it to a guy in a wheelchair in the front row, and allegedly a security guy came and took it from him, but I don't know how accurate that is.
Oh, well, yeah, I haven't heard any of that, so I don't, yeah, I wouldn't know either.
Yeah, it was just the county fair show I saw.
Yeah,
Do you remember your first makeout song?
no.
Oh, I remember mine. It was Janet Jackson's "Love Will Never Do Without You."
Okay.
Yeah, that's another steamy video. I love that video too.
I
That's a
don't remember that. I didn't listen to Janet Jackson. I would catch some of her videos sometimes, but I don't remember that video at all.
Yeah, it's black and white. Herb Ritz directed it. He directed Madonna's "Cherish" video. He likes the black and white stuff. He's very
Yeah, I
artsy.
remember the Cherish video.
Yeah. And like he did Michael Jackson's "In the Closet" later, and it was very similar to Janet's video, black and white, the same kind of premise and style, and
Hmm.
it's a great video and a great song.
Hmm.
Did you play a lot of board games growing up?
Sometimes I'm not a big game person, but the typical games growing up: Monopoly, Sorry, Candyland, stuff like that.
I played Clue. That's always my favorite.
Oh yeah, I love Clue.
There was Game of Life, Operation, Light Bright, um,
Hmm.
Battleship, Twister. I had a sex educator tell me that Twister is a great training ground if you want to try the 69 position.
Yeah,
Well, it makes sense, right? And
I
like,
guess
I'm surprised that game was popular because I can imagine there have been people who have gotten injured playing Twister,
that could be. I
pulling.
mean, do they even sell that anymore?
I don't think so, but like, for years they had it, and like I can imagine like pulling muscles doing it. I never really played
Yeah.
it, to be honest with you. I may have played it only once, but I'm a big guy and I was a big kid, so like I probably just didn't have the agility or coordination to play it.
Yeah, I never played it. It just seemed like a dumb game.
Yeah. I never got the appeal of Candyland.
Oh, it's like a lot of board games. It's just filling time, keeping your brain busy.
Yeah, I never understood that game. It was a popular one. Like whenever anybody wanted to play it, I was like, why?
Oh,
I just never got it. Have you ever played Cards Against Humanity?
I did. I played that. Gosh, it's been several years, but yeah, I have played it.
I love that game. It's so naughty.
Hmm. Hmm.
I played it with my friends' neighbors. They used to invite us over to hang out, and one night we're playing Cards Against Humanity, and there's this one girl there. I became friends with her, and she's been on the podcast twice. She had her husband, and her mother there. Her mother was a native German woman with the accent and everything, and she's like 70 years old, hanging out with us, smoking pot and playing Cards Against Humanity. I
Hmm.
mean, you gotta love that.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that was I believe the second time I played it. I've only played it twice. The first time I played it was at my friend's birthday party, and I had never even heard of the game before, and I was just
Hmm.
laughing all night long.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Oh, here's a fun question. Do you remember how
Uh-huh.
old you were the first time you discovered your belly button?
No.
No. It's funny. I must have discovered it as an infant, but when I was 7 is when I started contemplating it because me and the other boys would like show each other and compare.
Uh-huh.
and I had a girlfriend who had an Audi that was adorable
Uh-huh.
and stuff, and that started my love for belly buttons.
Oh, well, that explains your interest in Genie.
And Genie, absolutely, yeah. Well, it's funny. I watched I Dream of Genie, for years, but I didn't know about the belly button controversy until maybe the mid to late '90s. And I even asked
Hmm.
my dad about it and stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that pilot." He remembered how controversial it was.
Hmm. And same thing, they had the same issue with Star Trek and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Which I brought up earlier. Yep. So, are you still doing the All Things Maryland podcast?
We haven't done it lately because our schedules haven't been able to match up, but we'd like to kind of bring it back for 2025. Um, but that's the plan. We just haven't been able to do it lately.
I listened to the one you did last year with Luke Yankee.
Oh yeah.
Luke is great. I've had him on. It's funny. I was it was the 65th anniversary of the Bad Seed, and he knew exactly why I wanted to talk to him around October that year.
Mhm.
You want to talk about the Bad Seed, and I was like, yes, and Burnt Offerings. These horror
Uh-huh.
movies that his mother made and stuff. Yeah, it was a great conversation.
He's very nice. I like him a lot.
Yeah. Are you like do you have any bucket list people that you'd like to get on the podcast?
Yeah, I do, and just because I don't want to jinx it, I'm not going to say, but I have a whole list of people I'd like to interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know it's gotten to the point now where I don't want to mention my bucket list anymore. Um, and
Hmm.
partially it's because of the jinxing, but partially because I end up getting them later and I feel bad for saying, "Oh, I couldn't make the connection with this person before and I don't think they want to do it." You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'm superstitious, but so like when I say I don't want to jinx it,
Yeah.
it's kind of silly, but I kind of believe in that stuff.
Yeah. I've expanded my Maryland collection of VHS movies. Um,
Hmm.
I so I used to have these movies before, but now that I'm starting to grow my VHS collection back post homelessness a decade ago. Um,
Uh-huh.
I've got The 7 Year Itch, Bus Stop, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, How to Marry a Millionaire. I want to get Niagara Falls. Was it called Niagara? Niagara Falls?
Niagara.
Niagara. I want to get that next. I want to get Some Like It Hot and Don't Bother to Knock. But Don't Bother to Knock was never a part of the CBS Fox Video Maryland collection in the late '80s. I'm trying to get the entire collection of those tapes because I
Uh-huh.
just I just think the design of the boxes are beautiful. With Marilyn's lips
Yeah.
on there and stuff, and her
Hmm.
eyes and everything.
Yeah, those were beautiful boxes. I think I have a lot of those somewhere.
I'm surprised CBS Fox released those and not Key Video because Key Video was re-releasing the movies of a single icon at that time. I
Hmm.
have some from the Woody Allen collection and there's John Wayne and Brando and Bogart and all those people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Key Video didn't do that collection.
Yeah, I love Humphrey Bogart too.
Yep, yep. We talked about him last time as well.
Hmm.
Did you paint your toenails this time?
Yeah, they're usually painted. They're blue.
Yeah, mine are gold and silver
Uh-huh.
because of New Year's.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think what my next color is going to be.
I usually stick to blue, although over the summer I had kind of a hot pink for
Mhm.
Barbie.
Yeah, let's see. February, it's Black History Month and it's Valentine's Day.
Hmm.
Should I do like half black and half pink for the month?
That would be kind of actually black and pink are very complementary.
Yeah, I never thought of it before, but maybe I should give it a try.
Hmm. So that would be my vote.
Hmm. Yeah, that'd be interesting. So, like, with all the craziness and insanity going on in LA, are you still doing the tours?
No, I haven't for a while because of COVID, and then I work a lot, so and now the fire, so I haven't been doing those. I miss them, but I haven't been doing them.
Oh, okay. You're gonna get back to it eventually.
I don't know. I hope to, but it just depends.
How about writing another book?
Um, I don't know. I'd like to. I've done research, here and there on a variety of topics, but
Hmm.
nothing has really deepened into a book.
Hmm.
So it would probably be something years from now, and I'll probably just kind of chip away at it slowly.
Yeah.
But there are some topics I kind of have my eye on.
Yeah, I need to get back to writing my memoir. It'll be 4 years in May since I last wrote it. I got really emotional writing my memoir. I was like putting stories down on paper that I've never even told people that just made me
Mhm.
start crying. And I was like, I need to take a break from this because for 5 months I was writing my memoir every weekend. I was like taking a like I was like I'm not doing any interviews on the weekend. I'm just going to focus on the book on the weekend. And that's what I
Mhm.
did, but then I just started getting emotional and crying. And now I'm like coming up with ideas of stories that I should put in the book and everything, and I got to make time, but I'm just like so busy. I mean, I'm getting so many great guests and I'm just doing more research than I ever have.
Yeah, and I've heard that writing memoirs are kind of like that. I have no desire to write about myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I could um because it is so emotional. So anyone who writes a memoir, I really applaud you because it's not easy.
It isn't. It isn't. I mean, you got great writers like people we know, like Pleasant. She
Uh-huh.
is a great writer and stuff. Have you talked to her
She is.
lately?
No, not lately, but I really like her a lot.
It's funny. Last night, she finally started following me on Instagram. She's been following me on Twitter for a long time. She finally got my comment that I had posted, and then finally she started following me, and I was like, great, because I love it when I get notifications that she liked something dirty I posted.
Mhm. Hmm. Yeah, she's very cool. She's I'm glad we have her in Los Angeles because I think she represents the city well.
Not only that, but punk history as well.
Yeah, exactly. She's kind of like a walking encyclopedia of Los Angeles.
Have you ever seen the movie Hollywood Boulevard?
No, and I've been meaning to because I have heard of it. If it's the one I'm thinking of.
Well, Pleasant is in it for like, 20 seconds. And I watched the movie, not even knowing she was in it. I looked on IMDb, she's not even credited. And then
Mhm.
I messaged her and asked her about it. So they were filming on the Fox lot, even though it's a New World movie.
Uh-huh.
They were filming on the Fox lot, and her mom worked at the Fox lot, so she went to go visit her, and they noticed that Pleasant was very well endowed at 16
Uh-huh.
years 16 years old, or however she was. She was a teenager,
Uh-huh.
and they said, "Hey, you want to be in our movie?" And she said, "Sure, but I got to ask my mom first, who works here and stuff." And she's like, "Yeah, go do it." So they put a wet T-shirt on her and did it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's so funny because what they're doing, it's her and a couple other girls, and they all get sprayed with the hose and stuff. But because she was young, they knew she was young. They weren't going to snoop that low and show a close up of her and stuff. But you could see her there, and she looks exactly the same as she did then.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a different movie than I was thinking of.
Yeah, no, this is an exploitation movie.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it then. I'm thinking of another one. I was thinking of one like from old Hollywood.
Yeah, oh no, that's Sunset Boulevard.
No, 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 no. This is a different one.
Oh, there was a Hollywood Boulevard in Old Hollywood in the movies?
It
Huh.
might have, or something named similarly. Yeah.
Interesting. I'd have to look that one up. I don't know. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for coming back on and
Yeah.
nerding
Thank
out.
you for having me.
Yes, thank you for nerding out with me today. And
Yeah.
I hope you be safe out there. And yes, keep the spirit of old Hollywood alive.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
nice hearing from you.
You too.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye. Well, there you have it. Elisa Jordan, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my god, I freaking love her and I love her energy. It was great catching up with her and talking about, the contemporary stuff we liked in our childhoods. I'm so glad we could talk today. And it was so fantastic. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Liar, dudes.